Rock and roll. We got another expert interrogation here with two of my original mentors. Back, I just was telling Manny before, I think Douglas was here almost 12 years ago when I was a junior in high school. I met these guys up in Chicago, and they really, and then Douglas even told me, I remember following, I think it was the DV Info forums, and I remember telling him, we were putting the thread up there, and I said, I don't think I'm going to go to college. And he was like, you got to go to college. And for some reason, for me, it was just the choice. I decided not to go, and it's been a crazy ride, but it's been good. So, thank you guys for being here today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having
us, Michael.
Long way since that horror flick you were showing us all those years ago.
The Vault. It was a movie my dad and I made called The Vault. I can't believe you still remember that. That's great. We made it in a couple of these little random film festivals, so that was fun. Well, I don't want to take up much time. I'm a big talker, and I cannot shut up, and we'll spend 20 minutes just gabbing about the past. So we got Douglas Spotted Eagle and Mannie Frances from VASST here, and we're going to be taking your guys' questions the second half of this, so be sure to get them in early because these guys are on a tight schedule. I think Douglas is in, I don't know where you're at. Where are you both located right now?
Go ahead, Manny.
Coast to coast. I'm in Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. And Douglas, you're working on a Red Bull job, right?
Yeah, doing a thing with some of the guys from Red Bull. It's not actually for Red Bull. It's a project with guys from Red Bull, but.
Okay, gotcha. Well, guys, and the final thing for everybody, anybody in guest mode, if you want to interact in the chat or submit your question, right below Manny, you'll see a submit a question button. When you try to do that, it'll ask you to log in via Facebook or Twitter, and you'll be good to go. So let's get the show on the road. So what I had talked about right before the call is that aspect of people saying, oh, the competition, the gear. Everybody's got all the same gear now. I'm really having a difficult time winning jobs. I have my take on that, but what is your guys' take in this economy, in this day and age with all the technology being so accessible? What's your guys' take on how do you stand out and win these jobs from the competition, from all these lowballers even? Whoever wants to take it first.
Well, you keyed on it a little bit. You've got to stand out, and so you've got to know what your skills are, and you've got to know what your offerings are, what your assets are, and you've got to be confident in what you're able to deliver. That's always been the case. Competency really sells itself. But you're right. In today's day and age, it's a lot more than that. You've got to make connections. You've got to be connected, and there's so many more ways to be connected these days. It's not a traditional marketing program like it's been in the past. So, as you're very well aware, social media plays a big role in just in finding potential clients and having a public face without really needing to introduce every client to you from the start, because you're out there presenting yourself to people. And that's a big start. Spot?
I think that it's important that you brought up everybody's got the same tools. Well, anybody can go to Home Depot and buy lumber and a hammer and a screwdriver and a saw, but that doesn't mean they can build a house. The technology has gotten to the point where it truly is democratic, where everybody could own the same things. But being connected, as Manny mentioned, and knowing your craft and being smart enough to work within your niche. One of the things about the breadth of the market is a lot of people out there have the tools, so they think, wow, we can do all this stuff, instead of focusing in on what it is that they do best and staying with that niche. And look at yourself. You've discovered that horror films aren't necessarily your niche. You're doing these other great commercial projects that are what make you the money that you got going on. So identifying your niche, knowing where your strengths are.
Well, let's talk about that, because a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of different guys that have different perspectives on this. A lot of guys talk about the aspect of following that passion or following that niche and just doing that one thing. But some people say, well, that's BS. I've got to diversify. I've got to do a ton of different things. And for me, I've had the best success when I have focused. As much as I still do a variety, the thing that I focused on the most, which was my same-day edit, was the thing that allowed me to become known for that. People come to me when they want that. And so, I mean, what is your take on the narrowing in on that niche and staying with it?
Well, it's great to diversify, but diversification is important. But just because you can make a great television commercial, a 30-second spot or an infomercial on something, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily ready to do corporate messaging. So if you want to get into corporate messaging, fine, diversify, go out and do it. But before you begin practicing it for money, spend some time on an internship, either hang out with some guys that are doing that kind of work, or take on some test projects, or create some faux projects that allow you to really dig in and find out where your weak spots are, find out what you don't know. And more often than not, people go into this not knowing what they don't know. If you don't know what you don't know, you got to find somebody that can help you at least discover the questions you need to be asking. You're going to look foolish, and if you step too big as you diversify, you might shoot yourself in the foot to the point of it being a crippling wound.
Absolutely. Manny, you got a take on that?
Certainly. I think that, as you mentioned, once you identify where your focus is going to be, you can become a known quantity for that area. But you also have the opportunity to expand on that a little bit. Once you become known for something, maybe a same-day edit becomes the guy that can turn around jobs very quickly, and doesn't have to be a same-day job. It can be a multi-day project, but you're the guy that does it quickly because you've made a name for yourself doing something. So diversification is good, but really, in this industry, we all sort of are jack of all trades at the beginning. We are our own sound guys. A lot of times we're on a one-man shoot. We're doing it all ourselves. We have to. But the truth of the matter is, if we had the opportunity to have help, because we're on a bigger budget, or because we need to put our expertise in a certain area, we get a better product out of it. And that's why focusing in on your specialty is important.
Douglas, I'd love to know your guys' take on free projects up front. Talk to the guys for a second that are just starting out. No work. We get this a lot. I have no connections. I have no samples. I have no website. And, we sometimes tell them go out and do some pro bono work. But I always say that pro bono work that you seek out is better than people seeking you out, asking you to do free work. But what's your take? I've always wanted to know your take on free work.
Well, obviously, what you just brought up is the best answer. Go out and offer to do something. Go into you go to a motorcycle shop and say, hey, we've got this thing going on, or I could do this for you, and you've got these things happening. Could I create this thing for you? And sometimes it ends up not being pro bono. I'll tell you a true story. Going back, Manny could probably tell us how long ago this was. I want to say it was 15 years ago or so. But we wanted to start doing some trade show-based video. And a client that we picked up was in the strangest place. I was at a home improvement show. I needed a new roof on my house. And I met this guy. The company is a company that installs steel roofing that looks like shingling. And it was a brand new product at the time. It was really cool. Start talking to these guys, and I asked them straight out, hey, what are you doing for trade show video? I don't really see anything here except for video that came from the manufacturer, but it doesn't talk about your company. And I said, I would really love to do this, and maybe we could work out a partial trade towards the new roof on my house. We ended up not only doing a full-on trade for the roofing on my house, developing trade show media for them. Keep in mind, this was before the internet was really happening. But we ended up trading out and then getting paid for other work that took them into that realm. And then when they made the jump into online video, we were right there. And that was a great door opener for us. So we went to them, more or less went to them. I saw them in a trade show booth. I offered our services, explained what we could do for them. And that's a big piece of it is that just because you're a predator, you're a producer editor, it doesn't mean that you are a salesperson. And you might not be able to help people understand what you bring to the table. One of the things I find with several producer editors, again, I call them predators, but these guys that walk in and go, dude, we can make this great video for you. We can really make your business shine. We can show this. We can show that. But they never tell the client what's in it for them. What's the client really going to get out of it? They forget to state the obvious. we're going to show this product in a light where your customers can see it from all over the world, or your customers can see the product doing this or that, which means you'll have more sales as a result of this. In fact, we can, on the web, track how many people are watching. We can capture their email addresses. In other words, tell people what you're going to do for them, not what you can do. One thing to go in and say, I can do this, but it's another thing to go in and say, we can do this together, and this is what you're going to get out of it. Sell the benefit. Sell the sizzle, not the steak.
That's great stuff, and that's what a lot of people take for granted. And I mean, I've had that same thing, because a lot of people will tell you not to do, free or pro bono work. But I've had a lot of things lead to paid jobs from that exact strategy. But like we said, if they're coming to you, I'm sure you guys will have experienced this. The people coming to you, well, we've got tons of connections, and we're just going to hook you up with an endless amount of leads and all these things for you if you just take care of this for us. And that never turns out to be good. Yeah, so let's see here. So tell me, I'm going to let you guys kind of train. You have a presentation that I'm not sure if it's just you, Spot, or both of you that put this on, but you had one that says, win the job and preserve your profit margin through careful development of the plan. I don't know if that's a good place to start there, but maybe of those few spots we talked about beforehand, if you could give a little bit of that just training for a second instead of me asking some random questions, just some advice through that presentation that you have that could be helpful for everybody out there.
Why don't you take that one, Manny?
Okay, Spot does usually do the presentation. A lot of times we do it together. But we develop this stuff together based in part on our real-world experiences. And by that, I mean the mistakes that we've made over the years doing business. And, that's how a lot of us learn. But when we share that knowledge, or when we get training ourselves, we have the opportunity to avoid some of the mistakes that we've made in the past, hopefully. And really the best way to do that in our industry in video production is through careful planning. It's upfront. And one of the reasons is because it's impossible to plan for every single contingency. But if you don't try, you'll get surprised a lot. So you've got to try and think about what the process is going to be like and lock yourself in. One of the tools that I like to use during this process is milestones, so that you get everybody on the same page for a certain schedule. And when you're planning, a schedule is really important, but sometimes things slip. But if you've got milestones, you can really keep track of where everything is in the process, and you can get all the stakeholders in at key moments through the process and make sure you get to touch base. Hopefully you're on target, but if you're not, that's the time to check in. And generally, the other thing that we like to do, there's so much to talk about. I mean, a lot of this needs to be scalable as well. You've got to be able to adapt so that if you're doing a very small job with one or two decision makers, or sometimes a big job with a collection up to 10 decision makers sometimes, it really makes a huge difference in the type of planning and the breadth of planning that you have to do. But we like to use milestones, and we also like to lock in clients to approval. Basically, you've got to approve this version, and outside of this, get it in writing, example contract right there. And everybody's got to be on the same page as far as what is a change order, when does a change order get implemented, and whose responsibility is it to pay for whatever it costs to make those changes. Without getting into every detail, those are two really big tools that we use to keep us on track.
If you don't watch these projects, and if you don't have something that lays out each piece and what's going on in there, you can very easily run into, especially in the final stages of the project, you start getting into scope creep. And it's one thing to create a small change here, but pretty soon a small change here opens the door for a small change there, which opens the door for a small change here. And next thing you know, you're really where you should be looking at a final approval, but you're still set back almost in the very first approval stage because things have been changed up. If you find yourself running into scope creep, it means that either the scope of the project wasn't defined well at the very beginning of the project in writing, or it means that you were a little too lackadaisical or laissez-faire about Well, yeah, we could probably do that if you want to. It's not that big of a deal. Keep in mind, it takes a bunch of pennies to equal a dollar. Well, it takes us a lot of small changes to equal a big change. But if you're not watching out for those pennies, pretty soon you've got a lot of dollars going out the door.
Sure.
Well, and I want to add to that. So I know that all of us have done this in the past, exactly what you're saying. And I think so many guys are still afraid. He should be back here in a second. But so many guys are afraid to ask. They think if they've put in a bid, whatever amount it is, we'll just throw out $3,500. They've put in a bid for a project for $3,500. They've spelled out somewhat what you've said. What the project's going to entail. But now these changes start coming. They have these things that maybe weren't spelled out. But for whatever reason, they are afraid to tell these people that you're going to pay for that. What is your advice for the people to get past that, yeah, you know what, this wasn't discussed, but you know what, you can't be so afraid all the time for this hour and this hour and this hour that it's going to add up, because that's where these guys get taken advantage of. So what's your advice for people in that position to get past that?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, don't apologize for the fact that it wasn't discussed up front. In other words, we don't need to say, yeah, you're right, it wasn't discussed up front. Let's not go there. Be firm, be confident. Yeah, we can certainly make those changes. It's going to tack on a little bit on the back end. Is that okay with you? It's a closing question. What do you think about, I believe this is going to take an extra hour. Normally we bill at $75 an hour. I think we can do this in an hour, so it'll tack on $75. How do you feel about that? Or are you good with that? Will your purchasing department approve that? End with a question. It's called a test close or trial close. You're going to be this one-man shop. You need to know how to sell. You need to know how to ask these trial closes or ask these questions. And you're using the verbal thermometer. How do you feel about this? Let your client tell you.
It's great. Well, Manny, do you want to add to that in the sales process? Do you guys want to add some for everybody that'll watch this in regards to when you're even just selling a project? What are some of those questions to ask? What are some of those things that you guys do to help, close that deal, up front? Especially if it's somebody maybe, talk about whether or not you've got the people that you've already built a relationship with or somebody. I mean, you guys are at a place now that you get a lot of referrals. What about somebody that maybe doesn't know you as well and something that comes across and you've got to do a presentation to them? What are your kind of, ways of going about that to make that a success?
There's a few things, and I want to go back for a minute. We talked about how do you ask for money when it's really due. How do you get into that subject matter? A lot of it is knowing your client, but more of it is knowing yourself. So who were you when you met this client, and how did the initial discussions go? Did you present yourself as an expert, or are you kind of doing this sort of for free because you want the training? Those things make a real difference. And if you are presenting yourself as an expert and you are promoting yourself as an expert, then it will be expected that you're going to ask for that money when extra time is demanded of you by a client. So know who you are. If you're really just happy to have this gig, you can still tell your client, we really didn't talk about this in advance. If I was charging you for this job, I would have to charge you for an extra hour for these additions that you're making right now. And that'll help you understand the process as well, so it won't go unmentioned at the beginning next time.
Keep it in mind,
that leads into your next question, which is, go ahead.
Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were done.
So that leads into your next question, which is, how do we bid on projects now when we're a little bit more of a known quantity, and what do we do when we are presenting to strangers? So, one thing that really hasn't gone away in terms of face-to-face proposals is sales slicks or brochures or one-sheets. It's really helpful to have something tangible to give to a client and to hand off, and not just turn your laptop around and show them your own page online. And we use tools like that that help us define ourselves in a physical medium. So that's one thing that we do, and we do that whether or not we know the client very well. We do that just to have that physical medium, and also to have a concise representation of ourselves on the table.
Well, keep in mind, part of the conversation about billing and building things in, it's important to decide up front, are you a flat rate biller? Are you, in other words, based on the project, or are you billing per hour? Are you doing a flat rate up to a certain point, and then it's per hour past that point? You need to spell that out. Hey, the project is going to be, use your value, $3,500, and that includes. And this is, by the way, this is a great sales tool, guys. It's $3,500, and that includes all shooting, all editing, and the approval, the first draft, the second draft, the fine cut, and the finish cut. Now, if we start changing some things out, it's going to tack on $75 per hour. Are you comfortable with that? I just asked a closing question. I started with price. I ended with benefit and value, what they're going to get into it, and then I'm going to ask that trial close. Are you comfortable with that? Once we get everybody doing this thing, it makes it a lot easier. Look at that. You guys are all shaking your heads up and down. Everybody watching this are all shaking their heads up and down right now. Habitual thing, little sales trick. But anyhow, have fun with it. You know, that's part of it. Remember, this is a fun game.
Yeah.
What has been what has been one of your biggest challenges that you guys have come against that you've still won? That it was a job that you really wanted. Maybe there was a lot of other bids out there for it, and you guys had to come in. Are there anything that stands out that you guys you stood out from the crowd and got that job?
I'm thinking of a DVD software burning company. What do you think, Manny?
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, that was the big one. We won't mention the name of the client. They're huge worldwide. But first of all, we got the job because the boyfriend of the PR person was going to do the job, and then because he was that guy. He had the tools, right? He couldn't do the job.
Yep.
We got the gig because of that. But the guy had filmed some outdoor scenic stuff that they really wanted, because they wanted to include the boyfriend's work. And this is a national ad campaign. Actually, I think it was global, if I remember right. But this big ad campaign. And so we've got this stuff that we had to incorporate that didn't really quite fit. It's all this high tech with lots of cool bar graphs and cutting edge graphic stuff, lots of grids and moving pieces and parts. And we're cutting in cloud time lapse. It was kind of shot. It was a little bit juxtaposed. We had that was one issue. Then the next issue was that the PR department didn't communicate with the graphics department, and graphics department had a very specific hex color set for their logo, and PR gave us their logo in digital form, so they gave it to us. It was they supplied it. As far as we were concerned, everything was golden. Thing comes out and it turns out it's
and this was
valueless. And
this was back in the day when rendering times.
What's that?
This was back when rendering times were measured in days.
Yes. This was back when you were excited about rendering 3 frames per minute. Or 3 frames per hour, actually. It was when we were doing composites. When you're doing big composites, and this was a heavy composite job. Man, I'll tell you what.
That was the logo.
That was a challenge. And if we had spelled that out, in the very beginning, and if, in other words, we didn't realize at that time that even though PR signed off on it, that didn't necessarily mean that executive was going to be cool with it, or that the graphics department was going to be cool with it. So we actually had 3 components in the company that we needed to deal with, but we were working pretty well with just the PR department. So we found ourselves owned by this project for, I want to say a week and a half, over the Christmas holidays, with CES coming
Christmas
up.
holiday, Hawaii vacation.
Oh man, yeah, I was in Hawaii, and we didn't have the internet like we do now. It was, if you had a 56K dial-up in your hotel, you were slamming, and from that particular experience, and we've had a few others like that, but and that's been the thing, is there was nobody there for blazed the trail for us. We were one of the few companies that was doing both the live broadcast stuff, or doing broadcast as well as doing web stuff at the time. And we were kind of figuring some of these things out, blazing the trail, because colors for the web were one thing, colors for broadcast were another thing. Of course, CMYK on top of that for print. So we had all of these different variables in there at that time. But all it took was one. We learned it in one.
Yep. Yep.
So make sure that on your approval sheet that you've got it set up on there. You'll notice here on this one, probably can't really see, but there's 4 boxes on here. That's for each department that's involved to sign off. We got the graphics department, the PR department, marketing department, and sales department.
Hey, how would you guys feel about, for our email subscribers, us being able to send a sample of that one? Would that be something we could possibly work out if it's a blank one?
Line anywhere, do we, boss? I use it.
Say it again.
I don't know that we have that project online anywhere. I know I have it on some drives.
Oh,
we use it in our
just
the contract you're holding.
Yeah, just that approval, just a blank one. A blank one of that thing you just held up.
Not a problem. Can I find it on my machine after this session's over?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll send this out, guys. If you're on the page, real quick, and we're going to take your questions here real soon. If you're on this page, which most of you should be, there's an email sign up. If you guys want to have access to that, just get on our email list. We'll notify you of future expert interrogations, obviously, and then we'll send that sample blank document that Spot's been holding up left and right. So
actually,
that'd be great.
I think I sent you a link to it in when I sent you the
Is that the same one?
I think so.
That PDF?
It's kind of tenuous, so I don't want to get my computer doing other things.
Yeah, it said portfolio stuff, MS proof, approval.
Yeah,
PDF.
That's the one.
Okay, so you're fine with me just sending that to our email subscribers, just a blank document.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, well, so guys, we're going to be taking your questions here in the next few minutes. If you're in guest mode still, log in via Facebook or Twitter, and you can submit a question right below Manny. But one thing that I want to know that I'm really curious about that I don't think I've ever really known is, what does your company really look like? So all I know is you two, and I know there were some other guys that helped me with some of the training, because I'm a Sony Vegas guy still to this day. My team kind of does the Final Cut and everything now. I still like Sony Vegas. You know, some people cringe, but you know, it does the job for me. But what does the team for you guys, when it comes to a video production project, like, what does that look like? I mean, you know, go from who's selling that job down to who's editing it and delivering it and all that kind of stuff, and shooting and all that process. I'd love to know, do you outsource? Do you have full-time employees? You know, what does that team look like?
Yes. It depends on the project. We do a lot of in-house, and there are several people that are involved. You've met some of them, I think either online or in person, Gebs, and seen what's going on. But we use a lot of independent people depending on the location we're at. One of the things that we specialize is we're very connected. So depending on where we're at, we try to use people where we're going as opposed to transporting a lot of people. Especially today, we are connected enough we are able to find good people in specific areas or specific regions of the world or the country. Frequently, we'll shoot a project with one guy or one group, and then project goes somewhere else for someone else to edit. Or if I'm not in the project, I'll edit it. But if I'm in the project, if I'm on the camera, I'd never edit. I can't stand to listen to my voice or look at my face. It makes me crazy. But and then from there, it may or may not go to different people for approvals or for viewing and so forth. So we can range from a pretty good-sized group of people down to one of us.
So who's full-time then? And how many full-time people with the whole full-time employees?
We have the two of us that are full-time all the time. And we have some other guys that are full-time seasonally. You know, we put together a team of upwards of a dozen speakers for NAB. We put for the Post-Production World Conference, which just finished last month. We hope to get you out there one of these years, Michael. I think that you'd be a nice addition to the roster.
That'd be incredible.
So at NAB, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'd like to do that. You know, we We take out tours occasionally, and there's a circuit of a few different conferences that Douglas and a couple of our VAST speakers participate in. And of course, we have our entire software side, which is led by John Refrano,
Yep.
who I think that you had an opportunity to meet on at least one occasion. And so we get other guys writing code sometimes, depending on projects. And we haven't mentioned it, but VAST also, writes plugins for Sony Vegas and has some very powerful products in the marketplace right now that we're really proud of. So that's another division.
See some of the chat guys say shout outs for Vegas. Absolutely, shout outs for Vegas. We also publish stuff. We have.
Well, I joked with you the other day about yeah, right, about Vegas being on a Mac. I know you wouldn't give any insiders, but that's something I think everybody's waiting for, is for Sony Vegas to be available on a. Is that your Mac?
That's my Mac. I'm actually running boot camp right now on the one I'm talking with you or using with you, and I run Vegas on my Mac through boot camp. But SoundForge is available on Mac now. So is Spectral on Mac, Manny? I don't remember.
I think Spectral Layers is a dual platform. I'm not sure. But Sony has what Spot is alluding to is that Sony has done a few things recently that seem to suggest we might have that one day. I mean, as Spot showed you, we have it right now, but not everyone considers boot camp to be the answer that they're looking for.
Well, we actually, I mean, I'm not going to lie, we have a full Mac Pro tower here that's running boot camp with Vegas. That's what we edit the projects on. It works phenomenally. I'm fine with that. I know some people would like to obviously run it natively. But so what portion, because I want to make sure I'm not a little bit confused, because obviously what portion is VAST, and then what portion is all this other stuff that really, is VAST the company, or is VAST just the training and education?
That's the trading.
So,
side. Oh, go ahead.
The publishing side, yeah. What, Michael, what you might have.
The latency's killing us.
Go ahead,
here.
Spot.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
Okay, so the Sundance Media Group is the production side of what we do, and so basically, if it's a camera creating something for someone else, that's Sundance Media Group. If it is VAST, which is video, audio, software support training, that's where things fall under our software and our training content side, or our training side. So there's really two sides to the company, and both stay pretty active.
Is there a percentage that you'd say that's which one's bigger than the other?
Yeah, the training side is definitely bigger. I mean, that's the production, the things we produce for NAB and CES and LEVA and WEVA and Government Expo and all the DMDC and all these different shows. That all falls under the VAST umbrella because that's training. And just the fact that we're doing those tours alone, that keeps the VAST side pretty pumped up. So that's the bigger side, just because, I mean, honestly, people need training. That seems to be the hunger out there. And I love to produce, but even more than I love to produce, I love to teach.
Yes.
I teach full time no matter what I'm doing. I might be teaching something in the production world, or I might be writing a book, or I might be teaching something in the skydiving world, but it's all about, for me, it's all about sharing the knowledge. Get a bang out of that.
Yeah, you're a great teacher. I mean, Yeah, that's perfect.
Amen.
That's perfect. Well, hey, one thing that a lot of people talk about, obviously our biggest thing is to teach people with what we have with Create Insights and Expert Interrogations is the actual business side of video production. But a lot of guys are kind of creeping a little bit into that. We had Carl Olson, who was on here, who has a podcast, and he has some things where he's partnered with people and where basically he's produced the job, but he gets a cut of that training that's being sold that he created for those people. And so how much do you create that's just like, the Vegas training DVDs, some of the cameras? I know that we've got a couple questions. They bought NX Cam training that's on here. How much of there is that and what generates income from that compared to projects that you might do that we're not seeing on the VASST website for sale? Do you get any cuts of some of those trainings that are put together and sold outside of VASST? You ever partner with anybody?
If we're doing something for Sony or Adobe or one of the camera companies, whatever, we generally sell that out as a flat rate project, or we sell it out as a flat fee project, and we're out. The conversation of royalties and so forth, it's all a great thing, and that might be the model that you want to roll down. But I don't know how many hundreds of pieces we have out there. Manny might have a better number, but keeping track of that for us at a royalty end would become a nightmare if we were having to track everything Sony sold or everything that Adobe or Panasonic or Canon or whatever. It's just not in the cards for us. So flat rating a project fee is easier for us on those. Now, of course, the people that we develop training for, where we hire other producers or other presenters that are seen on our different training DVDs or on our VOD channel on the VASST site, those guys, of course, do get a royalty for the work that they do based on the sales that we make of their training pieces. We pay them.
Perfect. Well, there's about...
So, Mike,
go ahead.
There are many models for compensation, and there's certainly nothing wrong with doing spec work for a piece of the back end, especially if you have confidence in the project, or if you have a relationship with the person, or if you were just going to do the job for free anyway, for training. So there are certainly reasons why that type of opportunity makes sense. What Douglas was saying is that for our model and the way that our client base is, it hasn't made sense for us. But certainly, if you're out there and you want to get production experience and you have an opportunity like that, it may be that that you could hit gold.
Right.
And you never know, with some type of web infomercial that you got a click through. You never know what it might be. So it's possible.
Perfect. Well, guys, we're going to start taking the... Go ahead, Douglas.
I just say it depends on the subject matter. You're going to have to approach that based on what it is. If there's a sale involved somewhere down the road, and you feel that those sales are going to happen, or as Manny said, if you have confidence in what's going to happen there, it might be just simply training on how to use something. There's probably not a lot of sale involved in that. But on the other hand, if it's a do this, make this happen, then there might be some money on the back end. There might not be some money on the back end, so flat rate might be your best thing. You're gonna have to run the numbers on your own.
Sure.
Really, the only way to do it. Right.
An interesting topic that's been coming up is people saying that they're worried that they're going to have to guarantee the success of a video for a client, and how should that look like on a contract? Like, some people are asking them, if you create a video for me and what I'm selling doesn't succeed because of this video, I want my money back. What is your guys' take on that? I know that our take, what we have to say, but have you ever done that? I think I know the answer, but
you can't
find another client.
Yeah, find
the way to design
another person.
The way to define success in a video is with tangible achievements. So something that you can write down and say that you delivered. It's like saying, make me a video and I have to find it funny. Well, you have to tell me what funny is, and then I'll give you that. but you know, really, it ends up being subjective. So you have to make it objective, and you have to be able to say, this is what you asked for, this is what you paid for, here it is in your video, and get as close to that as you can.
How often do you guys say no to opportunities?
I'm sorry?
How often do you guys say no to different opportunities that come up? I know a lot of guys struggle with that aspect.
These days, I'd say it's probably more no than it is yes. Because there's a lot of there's
more than our share of no's recently.
Yeah, I met a guy at NAB. He was in one of our clients was exhibiting at NAB. That's the National Association of Broadcasters, and we're helping this client get their product rolling and not just on the web but in general distribution channels. It's a physical product. This guy comes to the booth and he starts telling them, "Hey, I can guarantee your video will go viral if you'll let me produce this video for you." And he didn't know that I was associated with the company. I was wearing I don't remember what shirt I was wearing at the time, but it wasn't one of their shirts. Anyway, I just sat and listened to his rap, and I said, so I pulled him off to the side, and I said, I'm just curious, how are you going to guarantee 500,000 views of their video in 30 days? He goes, well, you know, I'm signed up with this subscription company, and I'm signed with this subscription company, and we assign all this stuff in there, and I pay these guys to propagate, I pay these guys to propagate. Okay, so you're going to get this many links to their video. But what I want to know is, how can you guarantee that 500,000 people are going to watch that video for the full 4-minute run? Oh, well, dude, that's not how we measure it. So what's your point? Oh, so in other words, what you're saying is you're going to guarantee that 500,000 people will drive past the door, but you have no idea how many people are actually going to stop and open it, or at least look in the window. Really?
Oh,
right.
What's the definition of viral? And it's silly because one of the things that one of the guys that we do some work with, he was explaining to me this crazy thing about how clients that he's taking on now look at the number of followers he has on Twitter and Facebook to determine whether they're going to hire him or not. And the guy's, I mean, he's a great guy, and I if he's watching this, my apologies to him, but we were actually sitting at dinner at NAB, and in the middle of dinner, he whips out his cell phone. Excuse me, guys, I have to feed the demanding masses. And then he goes on to how he's got, I don't know, what do you say, 100,000 viewers or something, Manny? And he's going to change the politics in Venezuela.
What he felt like he had to tweet at dinner just to keep his Twitter followers engaged or happy or whatever. And
there's apps to automate that.
And this is at a once-a-year convention. We don't sit at dinner with this guy very often, and he might have been tweeting who he was with because having dinner with Douglas is a big deal. But either way, it's that's not how we approach things.
We don't really care about. It's not about the quantity. And I'll share this with you guys. Guys, if you really think that the number of Twitter followers you have and the number of Facebook followers you have are any measure of your success, rethink success. Especially for those of you that are out there saying, hey guys, I got this idea for a project. What do y'all think? Creativity is not a democratic process. Consider those words for a minute. Creativity is not a democratic process. So the number of people you have on your Twitter page or your Facebook page or whatever you got, that's a nice indicator that people at least find you funny, entertaining, interesting, or have other things to say. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're a great producer, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to measure your success in terms of dollars.
Yep. Amen to that. Well, I'll leave that. We'll take the questions now. We'll just have a few guys. They only have 13 minutes left, and we're going to have to stop. So I'm just going to take the questions that are in the queue right now, and we'll get those moving. And so that was great because that is so true. And now when there's so many ways to game Twitter followers and Facebook likes and all that kind of stuff, if people are gauging whether or not they should hire someone based on that, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but yet
more followers.
And YouTube views, right? You can. That guy's probably buying the 500,000 views so that they can see those numbers, but those aren't going to correlate to dollars for anybody, and that's what you guys need to take and keep into consideration. Followers, likes, views don't mean money. It's better to have 20 views of which 5 buy than 500,000 views of which none buy. So
Right.
amen to that.
Yep. Amen.
All right.
Amen. Hey guys, I've got to take this opportunity and jump. I apologize for that. I made it most of the way through. Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I hope to do this again. Got a great thing going. We appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, man. Take it easy.
Thank you guys. Bye for now.
All right, I'm flying solo.
All right, just a few more minutes here. All right, so SL3 says, "Hi, Doug. Your NX Cam DVD is a real lifesaver and instrumental for a wedding shoot I had done a year ago. So really big fan. My question is, any plans of a follow-up DVD on NX Cam DVD to offer other tips, i.e. achieving shallow depth of field, low lighting tricks, playing with slow-mo, speed, etc.?"
Answer to that, not so much on the NX Chem side of things, but as we start moving into some of the newer codecs, especially with HEVC around the corner and, in other words, H.265, and cameras start moving into there, we'll probably get more into how to take advantage of these higher compression rates in low light environments and so forth. So don't expect anything further on the NX Cam, but rather we're more going to focus on the codec side as opposed to the actual physical models.
All right, let's see here. Perfect. We'll blaze through these. All right, Manny and Doug. Well, Doug, Chris Simmons, my partner in Create, mentioned the way he grew his business via the old-fashioned way, networking, and the modern way, SEO. What other ways did you guys grow your business or get your name out there?
One of the things that we did was, for example, the trade show video thing, we stumbled on that entirely by accident. I was already doing television commercials, and we were doing some commercial work and also some independent second unit work in the Salt Lake City area. And I was at this home improvement trade show, and in the process of building that piece, keep in mind I had a personal investment and I needed a new roof. And it was going to be a $20,000 roof, and so I was putting a lot into this project. Once we got that built, I had a tangible something that I could show to people in a DVD or in a VHS tape at the time. We started taking that around and showing some different people what we could do for them. And even though I'm a producer, director, editor, musician, whatever label you want to stick on me, first and foremost, I understand the concept of sales. And it's helping people understand what you're going to do for them. The famous old Wendy's line is, "Where's the beef?" By always being there to tell people, here's the beef. This is what you're going to taste when I build this thing for you. Doesn't that sound exciting? And so through that process, in other words, going to trade shows, having the idea of here's what I can do for you, and having conversations with those people predicated around here's what I can do for you, or here's what we can do together, or here's what you're going to walk away with the benefit. It didn't take very long before pretty well everyone we spoke to was hearing producer, editor, video guys saying, "Oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this." And from us, they were hearing, "You're going to get this, you're going to have this, you're going to experience, you're going to enjoy." And we made it about them, not about us. And that was how we grew it. Keep in mind, we've been around for a while. Manny and I have been together for nearly 20 years as business partners. And so a lot of the way to explain our success in making those things happen is that we developed a business speak that was unique. And so where other guys were hitting 10% of their leads, we were hitting 50% of our leads, so we needed to attack less, or in other words, we needed to be less aggressive about who we were going after, simply because we had a higher success rate based on the way we talk.
Well, I want to say that for 1 second. So you mentioned a point right at the end, going after. How much are you actively seeking out the clients you're working with nowadays, maybe, as opposed to back then, but in general?
Oh, we don't need to. These days, we don't need to do that. We've been around long enough that the reputation precedes itself, and we have a specific niche that we work well within trade show media and training media, and they really boil down to the same thing. They're marketing tools. And because, again, because of our background in marketing or understanding of marketing and sales, we're able to very quickly define messages. We don't go out looking. Years ago, we used to look a lot. We would identify holes in the marketplace. We would see people that we knew would benefit greatly from our services. We went to them with some more or less prepackaged pitches. We had a formula. We have a formula. It's no different. For those that don't know, my background is in the music industry, and one of the best ways to create a hit song is to follow the formula of how a hit is built. And we all know that it's verse, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, verse, chorus, 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 this sort of thing. Well, that really works in this industry too. We know that we need to have a great opening. We know that we need to have a great closer. We know that we need to spike the curve, the attention curve in the middle of our video. If we can have sort of a pre-packaged process, and then we can talk to potential new clients with, hey, we'll do this for opening, or we'll do something like this for the closing. What do you envision for the bullet points about your product that are going to help us spike the curve or drag attention back to the video? By understanding that formula of how to build those things, everything else, first of all, the customers just fall into place, but it also makes us look really pro going in by having a pretty rough idea of their company and what it is that they need or we think. We also ask a lot of questions. When you
talk
go in,
about that a lot.
You know, everybody's got to learn, guys. Go out and get a book called Sales for Dummies and learn how to ask qualifying questions. Instead of telling your client what you can do for them, ask them what they need. Ask questions bearing on a need. Find out what they need, and then answer them. 9 times out of 10, your customers will fall into your pocket because nobody else asks. Everybody else tells.
That is a great point. That is a great point. Everybody's always telling. And Chris, my partner, talks so much about, asking questions, getting them to talk, getting them to tell you about what's going on, and then responding with the appropriate answer instead of just, I'm going to sit here for 45 minutes and tell you what I'm going to do for you, and so perfect. Well, we got a few more. I want to crank through these here and try to get a few people's questions answered. SL3 one more time. Follow-up growing the business question is what method you find works best for you and any funny stories you could pass on that worked for you. I'm going to actually pass on that, if that's all right, because we've kind of addressed some of that in the call. I want to try to get to a few of the other ones. Doug says, most all the video I see you produce, Douglas, you look like you're having a blast. What is the most fun you've had on a video shoot?
I can't tell you the answer to that. It'd probably cost me a lot of old girlfriends. We just have fun. The most fun I've ever had. We did a funny spoof commercial for a fizzy lifting drink. And so we jumped out of an airplane and we had stuff blowing up all over the sky, and the model that we were working with was wearing a regular T-shirt under her parachute, and things got interesting. And so that was a really fun one. But I got to say they're mostly all fun. They're almost always fun. And if you're not having fun, go do something else because it's not the right thing.
Perfect. All right, let's see here.
Let me ask this question. Let me answer from a slightly different perspective about the previous question, guys and gals. If you've ever been out on a date, that first date is always a sort of a dance of information gathering, so that the seduction, the close, is a little bit easier. You're always asking questions of the other partner, and the very best first dates, I'll bet, for everybody is when you ask a question and your date asks a question, the two of you have this back and forth questioning so that you're learning more about each other. And that really is, it's the art of seduction. The art of the close, art of seduction. They're the same thing. So think about that client as somebody that you want to date. That might help.
That is a great point. Well, just a few more things here. I think you can crank these out. Ken White says, do you think Adobe's decision to go cloud-based is the beginning of the end for professional post-production? Soon you will not need your own hardware at all. Anyone can be an editor from anywhere.
I think that Do I think it's the beginning of the end for professional post-production? Of course not, because professional post-production happens up here. It's not in the technology. So no matter what the medium is, no matter what the axis is, I don't care if it's even, just the thought waves. The talent is either there or it's not. The experience is there or it's not. The understanding of the formula is either there or it's not. You can't teach that. You either have to experience it or you don't have it, one or the other. So I don't think the cloud decision makes any difference anywhere. I also disagree that you'll be able to be an editor from anywhere, so to speak. As we're moving into 4K, and then the next lineup in 2018 is 2018 or 2020 is 8K. We're still going to need hardware, and so it's still going to be local based. We've been cloud based at VASST for a number of years. We were one of the first companies to be shooting HD. We've had the HD stuff cloud based for a long time with ABC HD and the codecs. And let me tell you, it still boils down to the hardware system.
And we'll call it done. You good?
Let's see. I think I lost you for a second. There you go.
Oh, we got 3 left, and then we'll call it done. We can probably get through these 3 real quick. You think?
I hope so.
Alrighty. I just want to be respect because we're right at 3 o'clock. I know you said you had to go, so I don't want to keep you. If you can get to see these, Mike Gorgas says I have a friend who has 180 plus 3-minute chunks of content that I would like to produce then monetize. Any recommendations on how to facilitate deployment and get people to the channel, or would YouTube ads be the best way to go?
Right. Wow, that's a tough one to answer because it's entirely dependent on the kind of content. If it was content about how to fix parts on your car, then I would think that hitting up forums and hitting up mail lists and working in blogs in that realm would probably be handy things. If it was 130 3-minute chunks on managing your time, that might be a different way of marketing it. But YouTube ads, if they're targeted YouTube ads or targeted Google ads, sure. It's going to be entirely content dependent on how I'm going to answer that. Who's the market? Who's the audience? Are you selling to 15 through 18-year-old kids? Are you selling to 35-year-old housewives? Christian content, he says. Okay. I'd love to answer that for you, Mike. I know so little about the religious market. I try to keep my life free of religion and politics. Perfect. I can't really answer that. Other than I know that is one of the greatest markets out there. So I would imagine some blogs, finding and identifying keywords that key into the specific aspects of Christianity or the religious community would probably be your best bet. I'm not great at that one. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We've got Jason. In order to gauge project cost, do you talk creative with a client before signing a contract, or do you ask for a retainer and then talk specifics and then quote the project?
The answer to that is both. If it's a client that we have worked with before, or if it's a channel that we've worked with before and we're going to be able to use our formula, so to speak, we talk creative before we ever go in because we have a pretty good idea of what we're going to have to shoot. We generally have a great idea of that. But if it's a different client, if it's a different market, if it's something that is unique where it's going to take some outside conversation and plan, then we're probably going to, or we have asked for a retainer so that we know that we have the job and then get into creative later. In some cases, we've actually given them names of other people that can manage the production side while we're going to handle the messaging, post, and delivery mechanism.
Perfect. One more. All done. I know it's great to meet you in your training courses. Do you address tricks for adjusting color matrix to get a different look to a color gamut for different cameras? And do you know any web pages for sharing matrix or camera setup files?
PVinfo.net and Creative Cow both have links to those kinds of things. Yes, we do talk about that in most of the specific camera DVDs, and unfortunately the protocols for the different LUTs aren't shareable between the cameras. However, we also, if you're a Sony Vegas user, we also have some tools like our Cinema Looks plugins that do this all within Vegas as well. So we have some specific looks for specific cameras and styles. Very much like the Magic Bullet Red Giant tools.
Perfect. Well, It's been an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. I truly appreciate you so much doing this today, taking time out of your busy schedule. I figured, you know what, I just need to do it, and otherwise, who knows when we'll ever catch up to do it again. But I'll definitely take you guys up on that NAB talk in the future if you ever want to, consider me for any of that kind of stuff. That would be quite an honor. So.
Hey, you are one of the best stories in our whole lives. Seeing where you are now, you're incredibly successful, the things we've seen you produce, and thinking about where you were back when you were in high school, and we were driving you to the train station because you came all the way into Chicago to hang with us, and it's awesome. Your success story has been one we've witnessed from start to finish, and it's been fantastic. So kind of a cool full circle thing here, Michael.
Well, there's no finish. We're going to keep on moving. You always got to keep learning, always got to keep growing and keep giving. So, and that's what you guys do, and you're an amazing teacher, and I appreciate everything. So it's an honor. Thank you. Thank you.
Honor's ours. Thank you very much.
Hey, cheers.
Thanks, everybody, for listening in, and we hope to see you on the web. Take care.
See you. Thank you. Wow, guys, that was great. I truly appreciate everybody coming out today and hanging out. I know it was a last-minute one here. Those guys are great. Like you said, I found them guys back in high school almost 12 years ago now, and it's been quite a journey since then. So I'm proud to be able to give back to you guys and help you guys grow too. So a couple things. If any of you guys are curious, you can check out, if any of you are new to the call today, be sure to check out our site, createinsights.com. My partner's not here with me today. A lot of you guys are familiar faces. But check out createinsights.com. We have an educational site where we basically are here to help video professionals take their business to the next level. I know so many people struggle with the business side of things, and there's not a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of tech training, a lot of things how to show you how to shoot and tell story and do all that, but not enough out there helping people with the business side of things. So that's what we do. We've just grown by actually a few hundred in the last couple of weeks. It's been amazing. And we have a great Facebook community, a private Facebook group that we've just launched a couple weeks ago that is on fire right now. Great conversations, everything's super positive. We have zero tolerance over here at Create for negativity. There's too much negative stuff out there on free forums and free things, and we really try to control that so people can feel comfortable and safe in the environment in sharing, their videos, sharing, what they've got going on. So check that out, and we have a great training that you guys can sign up for that we did a few weeks ago, and we hope you'll check that out. And also, if you aren't on the email list, I'll link it up here again. If you guys showed up late or you didn't hear it or you missed it, be sure to get on the email list because basically what we'll do is there was a document that Spot held up a couple times, and he sent me that, and it's a kind of approval document, a blank approval document that they use to help outline a project. So we'll send you guys that via email. If you sign up for the email list on the page, it should be above or below, and you'll get access to that. So that should be a great resource for you guys. And that's it. We've got Tom Antos on from YouTube next Tuesday. I believe he has over 90,000 subscribers on YouTube, so that's going to be a fun show next week. So we hope you'll join us. And if anything else, just like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We share a lot of valuable content on a regular basis. So rock and roll, guys, and I hope you guys have a phenomenal week. And thanks for the awesome show today. So we'll talk to you later. See ya.